Apanashane Vishnu Koiladara Shahana Srirangam Kshetri Tabe Korila Gamana. After visiting the holy place named Shiva Kshetra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Apanashana and there saw the temple of Lord Vishnu. Then he finally reached Srirangam Kshetra. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to some, the place known as Apanashana is located 8 miles southwest of Kumbakonam. Others say that in the district of Tinebeli, there is a city known as Palamakota. 20 miles west of there is a holy place known as Papanashana, near the river Tamraparni. Srirangam Kshetra is a very famous place near Tiruchirappalli. There is a river named Kaveri or Kolirana. A city known as Srirangam is located on this river in the district of Tanjore, about 10 miles west of Kumbakonam. The Srirangam temple is the largest in India, and there are 7 walls surrounding it. There are also 7 roads leading to Srirangam. The ancient names of these roads are the road of Dharma, the road of Raj Mahendra, the road of Kula Shekhar, the road of Ali Narana, the road of Tiru Vikram, the Tirubidi road of Matamadi Gaisha, and the road of Ada Jyala Indana. The temple was founded before the reign of Dharmavarma, who reigned before Raj Mahendra. Many celebrated kings like Kula Shekhar and others such as Alabandhanu resided in the temple of Srirangam. Yamunacharya, Sri Ramanujacharya, Sudarsan Acharya and others also supervised this temple. The incarnation of the goddess of fortune, known as Goda Devi, who was one of the 12 liberated persons known as Divya Suris, was married to the deity, Lord Sriranganath. Later she entered into the body of the Lord. An incarnation of Karamuka Tirumanga, one of the Alvars, acquired some money by stealing and built the 4th boundary wall of Srirangam. It is said that in the year 289 of the age of Kali, the Alvar of the name Tondara Dipadi was born. While engaged in devotional service, he became a victim of a prostitute, and Sri Ranganath, seeing his devotees so degraded, sent one of his servants with a golden plate to that prostitute. When the golden plate was discovered missing from the temple, there was a search, and it was found in the prostitute's house. When the devotees saw Ranganath's mercy upon this prostitute, his mistake was rectified. He then prepared the 3rd boundary wall of Ranganath temple. and cultivated a tulsi garden there. There was also a celebrated disciple of Ramanujacharya known as Kuresh. Sri Ramapillai was the son of Kuresh, and his son was Bhagbijay Bhatt, whose son was Vedavyas Bhatt, or Sri Sudarsan Acharya. When Sudarsan Acharya was an old man, the Mohammedans attacked the temple of Ranganath and killed about 1,200 Sri Vaishnavas. At that time, the deity of Ranganath was transferred to the temple of Tirupati in the kingdom of Vijayanagar. The governor of Ginji, Gopinath, brought Sri Ranganath from the temple of Tirupati to a place known as Singha Brahma, where the Lord was situated for 3 years. In the year 1293 Shaka, the deity was again reinstalled in the Ranganath temple. On the eastern wall of the Ranganath temple is an inscription written by Vedanta Deshika relating how Ranganath was returned to the temple. Kavadite snanakori deka Ranganath Stuti pranati kori manilak kritata. After bathing in the river Kaveri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the temple of Ranganath and offered his ardent prayers and obeisances. Thus he felt himself successful. Premaveshi koila bahut ganam naratan Deki chamatkara hoila sabolo kirman. In the temple of Ranganath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted and danced in ecstatic love of God. Seeing this performance, everyone was struck with wonder. Shri Vaishnav Eka Venkatapatanam Prabhure Nirmantarana Koile Kodiyasaman. One Vaishnav, known as Venkata Bhatta, then invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home with great respect. Hare Krishna. With your permission, shall I try to speak something? Hare Krishna. In Srila Prabhupada's purport, he is sharing with us some of the history of this great temple of Ranganath Dev. It is the largest temple in all of India. Not only that, it was the high seat of Vaishnavism for all of South India for centuries. Yesterday, before we were called for the blessed darshan of Sri Radhanath Swami, we came to the point where Ranganath's temple, over many centuries, was covered by sand due to being flooded over by the river Kaveri. People did not know where the temple was, where the deity was. It simply didn't exist to the eyes of man. Krishna tells in Gita that this is the nature of the world. Krishna tells Arjuna that I spoke this knowledge to Bibhishwan, who spoke to Manu, and then to Ikshvaku, and in this way it was passed down through disciplic succession. But in due course of time, it was lost. So again I am going to revive the true light of Sanatana Dharma by speaking to you. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirabhavati bharatya abhutanam adharmasya tatatmanam srijamya. The Lord says He comes again and again to re-establish the principles of religion, to protect the pious, to annihilate the miscreants. But why? It may be thought that if the Lord just appeared one time, in one form, and established Dharma, and established the proper process of worship, who He was and how to please Him, that would be forever in the minds of human society. But by the power of time, everything in this world disintegrates. Therefore, the Lord has to keep coming again and again and again to essentially tell us the same thing, because we keep forgetting. And we find in every religion of the world, the same types of situations happen within a religion, even in a matter of centuries, where the Lord has to empower certain people to create revivals of the original spirit. So devotees must be very, very careful to keep this spirit of parampara, which means the mood of pure devotional service, always very much alive. Even in our own Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only came 500 years ago. But He came to revive what was practically lost. The message of Godhead. And just not long after Lord Chaitanya, the river Ganges flooded over His birthplace, flooded over most of His pastime places, and remained like that for centuries. And by the time the Ganges shifted to its natural course again, people could only speculate. But the river of time created so much corruption. Various Sahaja sects developed, all in the name of being the true message of Lord Chaitanya. Why would anyone follow anything unless they accept it to be the highest truth? Yes, there were a few very, very deeply realized saintly persons in secluded places, preserving the essence. But to the world, even in our own Gaudiya Sampradaya, the vast majority of people had misconceptions which prohibited them from getting the real treasure that Lord Chaitanya wanted to give. And Bhakti-Vinod Thakur and his son Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they literally had to fight battles and risk their lives just to establish Lord Chaitanya's teachings as it is. Prabhupada was shocked when he came to America and he saw that Bhagavad Gita was so popular and there was so many commentaries, but none of them were speaking in the spirit that Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. This is what happens. God appears, He reveals His word, and then in course of time, He becomes covered by the rivers and the sand of human beings' tendencies to cheat, imperfect senses. They're invariably illusioned, and they make too many mistakes. Every human being has these 4 defects. Therefore, the fire of parampara is the only thing that can protect us from these 4 defects. The descending process of knowledge. But even parampara is distorted in time. Therefore, the Lord has to keep manifesting Himself, either directly or indirectly. So it's unimaginable. But when we study religious history, it's absolutely believable that here is Srirangam, the most glorious life and soul, the most famous deity in this entire region, the personal Ishtadeva of Lord Brahma, Surya, Manu, Ikshvaku, the Ishtadeva of Ramchandra and his whole dynasty, and the great king Dharmavarman, who performed such austerities of devotional service to bring him here. And then the deity's gone. Some people heard about him. Other people didn't even hear about him anymore. He was just gone. There was no trace of a temple, nothing. And then a king named Kila, he happened to be just walking, and there was a little anthill, and a parrot began to sing songs about the beauty of Ranganath and the beauty of Vaikuntha, and how Ranganath and Vaikuntha were right below the tree. Hare Krishna. Yesterday, for those of you who had darshan, when you come out of Radhanath Swami's darshan, did you see the bird cage? Yes. Please raise your hand if you saw a bird cage. And there's a deity of a bird in the cage. And that's actually the deity of that parrot that revealed where Ranganath was. Now we're all chirping like parrots. So he dug in the ground, and there was Srirangam Swami. And the temple, what was the remains of it? And then he re-established the worship and built a beautiful temple for them. Now Srila Prabhupada cites in his purport one of the Alvars, whose name was Tirumangai. Very popular story. You have all heard. I'd like to explain it from the point of view of why. Why is it that the most pious, compassionate, honest, pure-hearted souls honor and worship Tirumangai? How is this? There's deities of Tirumangai as one of the Alvars. One of the great acharyas of the Sri Sampradaya. Sannyasis like Ramanujam, great persons like Yamunacharya, Mahapurna. Why they honor and worship Tirumangai? These are men who spoke such purely the truth, who were moral and pious, ever well-wishers to ever-living being. We will tell the story and hopefully it will be revealed in the process. Nityananda Prabhu was telling me some of the past of Tirumangai's birth and how he grew up in this world. And it is very complicated. And for the purpose of keeping you all awake, I am going to skip to the end of the story. Nityananda Prabhu, where are you? Do I have your permission? Hare Krishna. Nityananda Prabhu is a storehouse of information. He is like an encyclopedia of the Sri Sampradaya. He was born and raised very religiously, and his name was Lakshmi Narayan. And I remember when before initiation, he sent a message, very humble. He said, please give me a name that is very much of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Do you remember? So I tried my best. Nityananda Prabhu. And although he's a staunch follower of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, still he has such very deep adoration and respect for the gifts he was given while he was a follower of Sri Sampradaya. He's kind of like our little Venkatabhatta. He was a devotee of Lakshmi Narayan who tasted the sweetness of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela and never turned back. Yes? So Tirumangai, he became a sadhu. Something interesting of his past is he was actually the son of a very wealthy landowner. His parents had a lot of money and he inherited it. And he fell in love with a girl. You know how that happens sometimes. It could complicate a person's life a lot. But it also can liberate a person's life. Nobody laughed when I said it can complicate people. When I talk about how liberating falling in love with a woman is, everyone's laughing. Perhaps you're not expecting to hear that from me. Anyways, this was the case. Kumudavali? Yes, Kumudavali. She was a very beautiful young lady. And he wanted to marry her. So he approached the father, which is the proper etiquette, to approach the father. The father said, I will not make this decision, I will leave it to my daughter. But the daughter was a devotee. And she said, I will not marry you unless you take initiation. So he took initiation. She said, but now you have to feed prasad to 1,000 Vaishnavas every day. Yes? So he started doing Vaishnav Seva. That's not a small thing, feeding 1,000 Vaishnavas a day. Of course, we're feeding 2,000 Vaishnavas. And we see it's not easy. 1,000 Vaishnavas every day feeding. He was personally arranging, serving very nicely. And through the process of just associating with these devotees and giving them very nice prasad and pleasing them, he became very deeply attached to the association of devotees. After a year went by, he got married to Kumudvali. But what happened is, he was so attached to serving Vaishnavas that even after marriage, he kept serving 1,000, then 2,000. He was increasing. That was his life and soul. He didn't want to do anything else except to serve Vaishnavas. And many things happened. But in due course of time, he became a sadhu. And he was traveling here and there. And because of his detachment from material life and his great devotion and knowledge, various people became his disciples. Specifically, there were 4 mystic yogis that surrendered to him and became his disciples, became devotees. And they had extraordinary powers. One could walk on water. Another could open any door or any lock. Another could step on a person's shadow, and in doing so the person could not move until he freed his shadow. And another one of these mystic yogis was so expert at debate and argument that when he started debating with somebody, the person could not leave him. It was like he practically, through words, he would put chains on the person, so the person just couldn't leave. So they were traveling together to various holy places, doing their bhajan, and they came to Srirangam. At that time, as we have spoken, time had really beaten down this place. It had become an overgrown jungle. Whatever temple was there in the past was utterly dilapidated and practically disintegrated. And the deity of Radhanath was just in a forest with wild animals. No one was coming here. The pujari was so afraid of the animals and the snakes that he would just come once a day and just give an offering and run away. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srirangam, the deity of Ramchandra's dynasty, was just living in a most primitive, forgotten, and poverty-stricken state. But the amazing thing is, in this area, there were fabulously wealthy people. And there was also miserably poor people. Why were some people so wealthy? Because they were exploiting the poor. So Tirumangai, his thought was, Ranganath is the Lord of the universe. He deserves to have a most fabulous temple. All these immoral, unethical, cheating business people, they have huge palaces, big estates, wonderful gardens. And the poor people are living in the streets starving. And Ranganath is like the poor people. He's just living in the jungle, practically starving. This is not right. We should raise funds and build a beautiful temple for Ranganath. So he and his disciples very humbly were approaching the wealthy people and asking, please give a donation to build a temple for Radhanath Swami. They would not give anything. They were so greedy, so materialistic and envious. They wouldn't even give a single coin. And not only that, but they ridiculed, chastised, and blasphemed them for even trying to make a temple for Ranganath. And this was the result they were getting wherever they went. So they tolerated insults because these people were so proud of their power and money. And they could understand nothing was going to happen, nothing was going to change, as long as these people were just controlling due to their money and power. So in an emergency situation, sometimes emergency remedies are required. So Tirumangai decided they're cheating, they're sinful, they're not giving to the Lord. Which is better? That they just get fat in their big palaces and exploit everyone? Or we take their money and build a temple for Ranganath? What do you think his disciples said? Loudly, please. Hare Krishna. So they made a plan. And they started recruiting dacoits. They were pure in heart, but they were engaging people who were not so pure. Chandramauli Maharaj is saying Prabhupada did the same thing with us. Thank you, Maharaj. So they had very good ideas. One of them said, I will argue with someone and they won't be able to leave. And while I'm arguing, The other person said, then I will pick his lock and I will go in his door and I will get inside. And if anyone tries to come to get us, the other person said, I'll step on his shadow. And some of these wealthy people, they have all these moats and water around their house. While you're all doing that, I'll just walk right across the water, go right in the house and bring Krishna's money back to him. So they started storing a lot of wealth. But they were not only doing that, but they were also feeding Krishna Ranganath's prasad to all the poor people. It's food for life. Food for life has its place in the Sri Sampradaya also. So all the poor people were ecstatic that Ranganath was getting his temple and that they were being treated properly again by people, who had some funds and some power. And Tirumangai amassed great treasures through this process. Then he hired the best architects and had thousands of workers working. They built one wall, another wall, another wall. He carried on with this fundraising campaign for 60 years. 60 years until the temple was complete. 7 walls, 28 gopurams, wonderful, beautiful temple. And Ranganath had just a royal accommodation and wonderful bhoga, beautiful ornaments. And because Tirumangai and his personal disciples were such pious people, in their own hearts, even though they were amassing such massive treasures and using every penny for the building of the temple, Tirumangai lived in the forest in a bhajan kutir. Didn't accept anything for himself. Every day he went out personally begging, house to house, to get a little rice to eat, and he would not eat anything that he didn't go out and beg. So he remained totally simple. He did not accept anything for himself, and none of his disciples accepted anything for themselves. And by this time they were all in their 80s when the temple was complete. But the robbers, who were there many, who were their assistants, they wanted money. Tirumangai spent everything for the temple. When the temple was complete, they stopped the activities, and the robber said, "Pay us." So there's nothing left. This was his principle. He wouldn't pay them anything. Everything had to be used for the Lord. He really had this unconditional service. Even the robbers had to be unconditional service. In the service of the Lord, no one gets paid. That was his mood. So the robbers plotted amongst themselves to kill Tirumangai because he's not giving money that we want. So Tirumangai heard the rumors that there was a plot to murder him. So he discussed it with his 4 primary disciples. And they talked amongst themselves and made a counter plot to protect their guru. So the one who argues so nicely, he spoke with them said, "Oh, what is the problem?" They said, "We demand money from him. He's not giving us any money. We're robbers, we're thieves, we're dacoits. We deserve money too." He said, "I agree with you. I know where he keeps all the money. He says he spent it all, but actually there is a great treasure." This happened to be during the monsoon season, when the river Kaveri was very wide, very deep, and the waves were just flowing in torrents. He said, "There's an island in the middle of the river, and that's where the treasure is. If we get that treasure, we'll all be rich men. And I have this boat, the same boat that brought all these huge stones to build the temple. We can all fit on that boat together." So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dacoits all got on the boat. Very eager. They went to the middle of the Kaveri, and just around sunset, the one devotee who could walk on water, he went with them. And all the rest were standing on the shore with Gurudev. And exactly what he did, somehow or other, he put holes in the boat. And the boat was fast sinking. Sinking, and the river was... They were all screaming and yelling and screaming and yelling. They couldn't escape. There was nowhere to go. And all of a sudden there was absolute silence. Do you know why there was absolute silence? Hare Krishna. They found their treasure on the bottom of the Kaveri River. And then this one disciple just very happily walked over the water and came back to his Gurudev, Tirumangai, and said, "They're gone." Tirumangai was very thoughtful. He said, actually they were murderers and thieves and bad people, menaces to society. But somehow or other, we used them. He wouldn't allow any murdering. He just stealing. But only from the nonsense, sinful people. He said, we used them to build Radhanath's temple. And now that the temple's done, they would have just plagued and harassed so many people. So Radhanath has ended their lives. But because of the service they've rendered, they will achieve his lotus feet. So you have done well, my disciples, you have done well. And then for the rest of their lives, Tirumangai and his disciples just lived very simple lives of renunciates. And they were pujaris, worshipping Srirangam soon after they passed away from this world. So why? Why is he one of the Alvars? Yes? Why is he worshipped and adored and honored by the most pious, honest, and holy people? It is said, Mahajano yena gata sapanta. We must follow in the footsteps of great souls. But it is also said that we cannot imitate great souls. Lord Shiva drank poison. Yes? Sometimes Shivites, they smoke ganja or hashish. And they chant mantras with each puff. And and they consider it a very sacred act of purification. And you, why are you doing like this? Well, our beloved Lord, Shankar Bhagavan, he can do, so we can do. Prabhupada said, well, he can drink poison of ocean. You cannot. You cannot imitate. So we have no right to imitate Tirumangai and think that we can steal or lie or cheat for Krishna. However, we must understand the spirit of Tirumangai. His love for the Lord. He was especially empowered by the Lord. He was specially directed by the Lord to perform this service for the benefit of tens and millions of people. Now, Tirumangai lived, about 1,500 years ago. That's how old this temple, as we see it, is. Is that correct, Nityananda? When did he live? Hundreds of years before Ramanujacharya. So between 1,500, 2,000 years ago, he built this temple. And the temple he built has been visited by probably hundreds of millions of people over these years. And the temple he built became the high seat of Vaishnava culture. Yamunacharya lived here for the greatest years of his life. Ramanujacharya resided here for 60 years and inspired the whole Vaishnava culture throughout humanity. So we are very grateful to Tirumangai Alvar. We offer obeisances to him. It must have been a very painful situation for him to have to do what he did, but he did it for all of us. And you can see it, sometimes judge a thing by its result. Now, when any of us try to do something dishonest for Krishna, either we get put in jail, or we ruin the reputation of Vaishnavism, or there's all kinds of bad press in the newspapers, and we do something, the result is something, we get something, but the result is something very bad. Yes? But Tirumangai, what did he do? It's glorious. The result. So in the year 1510, some say 1512, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came here to Srirangam. And with your permission, we will discuss this particular subject today. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas in the month of Magh. He left Navadvip, went to Katwa, eventually came to Shantipur, and then traveled to Jagannath Puri. He resided in Jagannath Puri during the month of Phalgun, and in the month of Chaitra, he delivered the greatest scholar of Puri, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And then in the next month of Vaishakha, Lord Chaitanya decided to go on a pilgrimage to South India. One day he held the hands of his devotees, and with great emotion he expressed his heart. He said, I cannot do anything without your blessings and permission. So today I am asking, begging your permission to allow me to travel to South India. It is my desire to find my brother, Vishwarup, who left home years ago, never to be seen or heard from again. So please give me your blessings to go. This in itself is such an example. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the supremely independent personality of Godhead, the controller of all controllers. But yet, in the role of a devotee to teach us by example, he will not begin any significant undertaking without the permission and the blessings of the devotees. And this is all important for everybody. Because the success of anything we do on the path of bhakti is that it pleases Krishna. If we do not have the blessings of the devotees, then nothing we do will please Krishna. We shouldn't even attempt anything without the blessings of the devotees. Because Krishna does not accept our material manipulations. Krishna does not simply accept that we can get something done. Krishna accepts the spirit, that we're doing it to please him. And Lord Chaitanya wanted to establish that the way to please him is to be the servant of the servant of the servant. And this was consistent throughout his pastimes. He's the Yuga Avatar. He came to this world to establish the Yuga Dharma of the chanting of the holy names. But he didn't begin the process until he received initiation from Ishwarapuri, and Ishwarapuri ordered him, now you go out and you spread the holy names of the Lord throughout humanity. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyata. In the age of Kali, the chanting of the names of Hari is the only way of the ultimate liberation. You must take this verse very deeply in your heart and spread the glories of Harinam Sankirtan. After he received the blessings and the order of his guru, then he went back to Navadvip to establish the Nam Sankirtan movement. And similarly, Nityananda Prabhu, he traveled for approximately 20 years and never preached until Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him permission and blessings to preach. So here is Krishna and Balaram, and they are establishing this principle, that we must have blessings. With the blessings of the Vaishnavas, whatever we do is auspicious. But the devotees, they did not want to give him permission unless they could go with him. So Nityananda Prabhu said that, you want to go to South India? Well, I know all the places because I've already been there. So I will also come. And then Mukunda, Jagadananda, Damodar Pandit, they were all explaining to Lord Chaitanya what services they could all do for him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I will not go with any of you. He said, Nityananda Prabhu, how will I go with you? I'm trying to be a sannyasi. And anything I try to do, you undermine. You broke my danda in 3 places. You threw it in the river. And when I wanted to go to Vrindavan, you misdirected me to Shantipur. I will not go with you. Too many disturbances you create. And Jagadananda Pandit, I'm a sannyasi, I must perform tapasya. But when you see that I perform tapasya, you become so angry with me. You try to give me sense gratification. And if I don't accept your sense gratification, then you fast. Too much disturbance. I will not go with you. And Mukunda is very humble, very quiet. But when he sees that I take cold baths in the early morning and I'm sleeping on the hard ground, his heart breaks and he cries. And when I see his heart break, my heart breaks and I feel even more pain than him. So, Mukunda, I cannot go with you. And as far as Damodar Pandit, you are a brahmachari, and I am sannyasi, and brahmacharis are supposed to follow the instructions of sannyasis. But you are like with a stick over me, chastising me when I do anything not according to your standards. I will not go with any of you. I will go alone. Now, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, they explain so beautifully how Lord Chaitanya was not criticizing them. He was actually glorifying them. Because each of these examples that we have cited were due to their pure, ecstatic, spontaneous love for the Lord. In the name of criticizing them, in the guise of criticizing them, he was actually glorifying the sweetness of their pure love for him. But still, he would not go with them. Nityananda Prabhu said, but when you're walking down the roads, you'll be chanting with one hand, and you'll be counting the names that you chant with your other hand, so both of your hands will be occupied, and you have to carry extra kolpan and an extra set of clothes, and you also require to carry a begging bowl and a water pot. The danda was already gone. Nityananda did not bring up the subject of a danda. So you should take at least one assistant. And we have a new man who's very simple, and he won't trouble you in any way. He won't say anything. His name is Kal Krishna Das. He's a nice Brahmin. Please take him. So Lord Chaitanya, in order to please the devotees, accepted Kal Krishna Das. Then Lord Chaitanya went to the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and told him that please give me your blessings and permission to go on a tour of South India. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he started to cry. He said, after many, many births of being a materialistic person in a Mayavadi, finally I obtained your mercy. Just days ago you delivered me from all of my nonsense. You're my life and soul, my only hope, and now you want to leave me? My Lord, please do not leave. But at the same time, you are the independent Lord of my life. I cannot tell you not to go. But I request that you stay in my house for 5 days more. Lord Chaitanya was so loving to his devotees, he agreed. Yes. And he stayed in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house for 5 days. And every day Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sumptuous prasad. And just to please him, he accepted that prasad. And throughout the day and the night there was simply Krishna Katha and Harinam Sankirtan. When the 5 days were complete, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received the permission and blessings of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Getting the blessings of all the assembled devotees. Then he went to Jagannath's temple and begged permission to leave from Lord Jagannath. This was also the standard of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He received an order to write Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. He went to all the devotees and got their blessings. Then he went to Madan Mohan to beg his permission. Similarly, when Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasa Acharya and Shamananda Goswami, when they were ordered to take all the books of the Goswamis to Bengal, they traveled all over Braj to get the permission and blessings and prayers of every devotee. They went all the way to Radha Kund to get the blessings of Raghunath Das Goswami. They went all the way to a cave in Govardhan to get the blessings of Raghava Pandit. They went to all the different temples, and Lokanath Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Madhu Pandit. They went everywhere getting blessings, 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 seeking permission. But the wonderful way that these devotees appealed for blessings was by humbly serving these devotees, honoring these devotees, and taking shelter of these devotees. Because blessings of Vaishnavas may be there, but we benefit from those blessings to the extent we are receptive. Our heart must be receptive. We must be able to digest blessings. For those of you who understand the science of Ayurveda, our health is very much dependent on the power of our digestion. Well, from a spiritual point of view, our spiritual health is completely dependent on our ability to digest mercy. Yes, mercy is coming, but are we receptive? Srila Prabhupada showered his mercy on so many people. But not everyone's the same. And Krishna, he showered his mercy on Duryodhana. He showered his mercy on Karna. But they could not digest any of it. Because they were proud. Because they were envious. Because they had ulterior motives. Yes, you can beg for blessings. And you can, yes, you are blessed. Mercy will come. But our heart can only digest it to the extent we are not duplicitous. That is why Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he taught us that the first principle of following Vaishnava Dharma is simplicity. And what is simplicity? It's a deep subject. But an easy way of defining simplicity is no duplicity. That means no ulterior motive. Having an honest and open heart. No separate agenda. No secret agenda. No hidden motives. We have an open heart and a clean heart. That is simplicity. To be humble, to be honest, to be straightforward, and not to have hidden agenda. In other words, simplicity means we have a real service attitude. We're not thinking, what's in it for me? Now you can be a devotee for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. You could be a devotee for 50 lifetimes. Time is not what's going to make you advanced. It may. It's not just the time we're in the movement. It's not just being senior in terms of years that makes us dear to Krishna. Our advancement is to what extent we are able to digest mercy when it comes to us. And in order to do so, we must be simple. Prabhupada emphasized simple living and high thinking. And who judges whether we're simple or not? The Paramatma, Krishna within our heart. He sees our motives. Sometimes in our ordinary dealings we have to be very clever and very intelligently astute to not be cheated. Yes? Sometimes in management, so many intellectual exercises we have to go through to get something done. But our heart must be simple. We're not trying to fool anyone. We're not trying to exploit anyone. We're not trying to cheat. We're open, we're honest, we're humble. That is simplicity. So, when we have that simple heart and we beg for blessings and blessings come, we can fully digest it. And then we become nourished and empowered by those blessings. In Prabhupada's prayer, Anjala Dutta, he teaches us what our consciousness must be to digest blessings. I remember one time I sang that song and a very, very senior Gaudiya Vaishnava from Orissa, he heard it for the first time. And he just started crying. He was crying in ecstasy. He said, this poem by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is the essence of the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava culture and philosophy. Everything that needs to be known of what a Vaishnava is supposed to be is right here in this poem. And the amazing thing is Prabhupada did not write it thinking that anyone would even read it. He was on Jaladuta. He had no followers. He was just pouring his heart out to Krishna and his Guru Maharaj. So after taking the blessings of all the assembled devotees, then Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannath's temple to ask for his blessings. Standing at the Garuda Stamba. And after receiving Jagannath's blessings, he was about to begin his journey. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya approached him as he was about to leave and said, "My Lord, I have one favor I beg of you. Please grant me this benediction. When you are traveling in the south, near the city of Vidyanagar, which is on the banks of the Godavari River, there is a very great devotee of the Lord. I want you to meet him, because I know you will find so much happiness if you meet him." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the only benediction he was asking was a benediction that would make Lord Chaitanya happy. He said, "Ramananda Rai, he is so learned, and he is so deeply devoted. Previously, because I was a Mayavadi, I could not appreciate him. In fact, I laughed about his devotion to Krishna. I ridiculed him. But now, by your mercy, I have become a devotee and I could fully appreciate Ramananda Rai's greatness. You will find great satisfaction conversing with him. Please meet him, please." Lord Chaitanya agreed. Now Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, although he was a grihastha, with a wife, children, he was a kshetra sannyasi, which means his worshipable deity was Lord Jagannath, and in his life he would never leave Puri, never leave the place of his deity. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he left Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could not tolerate that he was leaving. Can you imagine? Lord Chaitanya was going to go, he said, "I'm going all the way to Setubanda," which is thousands of miles away from Puri. And there was no telephones. There was no emails. There was no postal system. How to communicate? And Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi. He didn't communicate those ways anyway. The only time he communicated with anybody is when he was with them. Except sometimes through their hearts as the Paramatma. So the devotees, they didn't know how many years the Lord would be gone. And they were not going to get any information of his whereabouts or his activities. This was very difficult. I remember when Srila Prabhupada was with us, we lived to the moment that he would come to our temples and shower his mercy on us. But when he wasn't there, we were always trying to be attuned to where he was and what he was doing and what he was saying and how he was expanding the preaching and how he was dealing with the devotees. And when Shyamsundar Prabhu was Prabhupada's secretary, he was such a generous, kind-hearted soul, which he still is, of course. But he did what none of the other secretaries really did. Shamsundar Prabhu wrote newsletters to all the temples in the world of Prabhupada's activities. Because Shamsundar Prabhu was personally witnessing, both internally and externally, how Prabhupada was dealing with various situations and beautiful, sweet, loving exchanges that Prabhupada was having with individuals, as well as monumental preaching successes he was having with the public. And Shamsundar Prabhu was empowered to write these newsletters, and devotees all over the world were just waiting for Shamsundar Prabhu's newsletters from Prabhupada. Because by the time the 70s came, almost every devotee in the world was ordered by their authorities not to write a letter to Srila Prabhupada. Yes? I was personally told it's offensive to write a letter to Prabhupada. Because then Prabhupada has to go through so much trouble just to answer your letter. And he has so many things to do. Why do you want to bother him? Why do you want to bog him down in this way? So the vast majority of Prabhupada's disciples never wrote a letter to Prabhupada and never received a letter from Prabhupada because they were ordered not to. And in this way, as far as any personal exchange with Prabhupada, when for sometimes years between he would come to your temple, was Shamsundar Prabhu's newsletters. Every now and then his books would come out, but actually hearing about what Prabhupada was doing, what Prabhupada was saying, where Prabhupada was going, it was wonderful. And for this, we have a great debt to Shamsundar Prabhu. Nourished our hearts very beautifully. And of course, Yadubar Prabhu and Vishaka Prabhu, they were taking photos and making videos of Prabhupada. So that was also keeping us alive. But most of the videos still we haven't seen. But it's coming. In fact, Yadubar Prabhu with Bhakti Essay and So Mataji, they are based in Radha Gopinath Temple, and that's the main project they're working on. Editing in DVD form, in the best possible quality, all of the footage of Srila Prabhupada to make it available to the whole world. So we should all pray here at Srirangam that their project is a grand success. And any other ways we can help them also, we should try to help. So, Kal Krishna Das was not like Shamsundar. He didn't write a single newsletter. And there was no postal system to deliver it anyway. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was about to leave, that means no word about him till he comes back, and we don't know when he'll come back. It's not that they all saw him off at the airport in Bhuvaneshwar. He was walking. That was the only transportation of that day for sadhus, was walking. Now, Kshatriyas would ride on horses, and sometimes Vaishyas would ride on donkeys. But sadhus would walk. Yes, only walking. So they came, so when Lord Chaitanya said goodbye to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he just, no, don't leave, please. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya said, Hare Krishna, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya fell down to the ground unconscious. And Lord Chaitanya just walked away. Hare Krishna. Totally renounced. And in this regard, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes how these are the wonderful symptoms of a great personality. They can be soft like a rose or hard like a thunderbolt, depending on what is required to show compassion to others. So Mahaprabhu just walked, and Nityananda Prabhu was trying to revive Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. But then Nityananda Prabhu caught up with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they came to the holy place, Alalanath, just near the sea, where there's a beautiful ancient deity that used to be worshipped by the Alvars in South India, was later brought up to Puri. Alalanath, according to the history, his name was Alvarnath, the Lord of the Alvars, of the Sri Sampradaya. So Mahaprabhu began kirtan there in Alalanath's temple. And soon hundreds and hundreds of people were joining the kirtan. And then thousands of people were joining the kirtan. And the whole village came. And then other neighboring villages and villages beyond those villages. Everyone came to see the beautiful golden form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing in ecstatic love with his arms raised, chanting the holy name. The kirtan went on for hour after hour after hour, day. Went on for days. And when Nityananda Prabhu saw this, how so many people were being attracted to the chanting of the holy names by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, Nityananda Prabhu then made his historical prediction. Nityananda Prabhu proclaimed that by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, just like I am seeing in Alalanath, that the holy name will be spread in every town and village throughout the world. Srila Prabhupada ki. This was the seed of Srila Prabhupada's mission. Nityananda Prabhu's prediction, which took place at the dawn of Lord Chaitanya's South Indian tour. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after spending some days on Alalanath, he bid farewell to all of his devotees, who also were falling unconscious, and he walked away forward, along with Kal Krishna Das. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his heart was feeling the anguish of the pains of separation from his devotees as he walked away from them. But simultaneously, he was feeling the bliss of going out to deliver hundreds and thousands of conditioned souls. He just bore the pain of separation in his heart and walked forward. As he traveled along the footpaths, he was constantly immersed in chanting the holy names. And anyone who heard him chanting or saw his beautiful form, they also began to chant. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing them ecstatically chanting the holy names, he would embrace them and give them prema bhakti. Srila Prabhupada describes how as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling, he constantly chanted the names of Krishna. And one song that he sang again and again and again, we will sing together. Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Lakshmana. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, 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 As the common people saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting in this way, their hearts were so much attracted that they came on the road with him, chanting the holy names. And within minutes they were dancing with tears in their eyes, their hair standing on end in ecstasy. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw people reciprocating with his mercy by taking the holy name of Krishna, he embraced them and invested within their hearts prema bhakti. This is one of the greatest services we can do to please the Lord, to simply receive his mercy. The Lord and great personalities, more than anything else, they simply want to give. And one of the greatest gifts we can offer is to receive. Srila Prabhupada would speak. Just by attending the lecture and being attentive and accepting the efforts he was making to enlighten you in Krishna consciousness made him so very happy. In 26 Second Avenue, when Prabhupada had nothing, the greatest thing that brought him pleasure was if someone came and accepted prasad from his hands. At the beginning, no one was trying to help Prabhupada in the sense of doing service to assist him. But just by receiving, Prabhupada was so happy. In Prabhupada's diary, he writes how someone gave him a tape recorder, a reel-to-reel tape recorder that go like this. And Srila Prabhupada made a tape of himself chanting. And he would go to people's apartments and he would play the tape. Sometimes he would chant live performance, and sometimes he would play the tape. Because I guess, in New York City, it would give him some credibility if his voice was on tape. And Prabhupada was just thrilled in his diary that they liked the tape. They actually liked the chanting. And after one such, where just 4 or 5 people came and he played the tape and they liked it, Prabhupada said, now I know for sure that Haridas Thakur's prediction will be fulfilled, that the holy name will spread in all directions. Because you see, they liked the chanting. Prabhupada was so grateful. People who were meat eaters. People who were gambling their lives away. People who were taking all kinds of LSD and STP and PSP and marijuana and psilocybin and peyote and all kinds of stuff. Uppers and downers and all arounders. But still, they accepted prasad and they liked it. They would sit for his lecture and listen. Or they would take the holy name, and Prabhupada was so unlimitedly grateful to them for taking the mercy that he was given. If you give Prabhupada a garland, he's happy. What to speak of a flower crown. When you give Prabhupada something, he's happy. But what would make him the most happy is when we were receiving his mercy wholeheartedly. When we were actually, he would thank his disciples profusely for reading his books. In the early days, he just had that first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and if someone actually took interest in reading it, Prabhupada was practically eternally indebted with gratitude to that person for reading his book, for accepting the life of sacrifice that he performed. Yes. When we read Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada is so grateful to us. When we hear his tapes, he's so grateful to us. When a devotee is speaking Hari Katha, if we're actually attentively listening, that's a great service, just to receive. Because devotees live to give. And the greatest thing we can do is to receive and to reciprocate with enthusiasm. When Prabhupada would give the holy name and he would see people taking it with enthusiasm, oh, he was so indebted and grateful to those people. And Prabhupada was spreading the mission of Krishna consciousness. And when he saw his devotees, not just helping him to give Krishna to others, Prabhupada was so grateful. There was nothing that won Prabhupada's heart more than if you were enthusiastic to just take what he gave and share it with others. That was his whole mission. That's all he wanted of us. Just receive and share it. And that's the greatest thing you can give me. So that is the line of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not taking anything from anyone. He was just giving, giving, giving. And whoever would receive Lord Chaitanya would be so happy. There's that beautiful prayer of Nityananda Prabhu. It says, take the name of Gauranga. Worship Gauranga. Speak the teachings of Gauranga. And anyone who does that, anyone who just accepts Gauranga, is my life and soul. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu anyone who just took the holy name of Krishna, that person would become Lord Chaitanya's life and soul. When he would see someone chanting the holy name with enthusiasm, he would just, with love, unlimited love in his heart, just strange people. Some of them were Brahmins, some of them were Chandalas. It didn't matter. If anyone accepted the holy name of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would embrace them with ecstatic love and affection. Thank you. In this way, he carried on with his tour, chanting the holy names. Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 It is a great act of love to receive the gifts of Krishna or his devotees with enthusiasm. When Prabhupada would speak, if he would see devotees enthusiastically, eagerly listening, he would be so ecstatic. He would be so grateful. You're accepting my services. But when he would see devotees falling asleep, he would feel very much compassion. He would tell devotees, stand up. Yes? He did not like to see sleeping devotees. He would say, stand up. And at New Vrindavan, Srimad Bhagavatam class, more than half the devotees would always be standing up. Yes? Yes? Chandramali Swami says sometimes they'd even be sleeping standing up. And he is speaking with deep realization. There is absolutely nothing theoretical about Maharaja's words. I remember one year when Prabhupada was there, Bahulaban, he gave all his classes at Bahulaban, except sometimes on top of a mountain. And he would give his darshans in different gardens. But during Bhagavatam class, he was speaking on the teachings of Prahlad. And the first day was a long class. And people were really sleeping. And standing. And the amazing thing, sometimes, I mean, how discouraging. He's giving his heart and soul to speak to us, and people are like struggling and straining and standing. And some devotees were falling down. To the ground. Marble floor. And devotees of New Vrindavan, some of them, they knew their nature, So they would come to class with spray bottles. And throughout the class, they'd just be going... But during Bhagavatam class, he was speaking on the teachings of Prahlad. And the first day was a long class, and people were really sleeping and standing. And the amazing thing, sometimes, I mean, how discouraging. He's giving his heart and soul to speak to us, and people are like struggling and straining and standing. And some devotees were falling down. To the ground. Marble floor. And devotees of New Vrindavan, some of them, they knew their nature, so they would come to class with spray bottles. And throughout the class, they'd just be going... somehow trying to stay awake. Huh?
Sometimes they spray other people.
Yeah, they'd spray other people too. And I remember some devotees, when they'd give class, they'd have a spray bottle in it. I won't mention names, but the devotee would give class and have the spray bottle right in his hand. And as soon as someone would, and he'd have it adjusted so it would be a very thin, piercing stream. And if he'd see somebody right from the Vyasa-san, if he'd see somebody sleeping, he'd be going, "Day and all swing it." And we usually aim right for your eyes. So this enthusiasm to receive is very dear to the hearts of those who are trying to give Krishna consciousness. Yes, Chandramali Maharaj. At New Vrindavan, it was such a place that even the person giving Bhagavatam would fall asleep. Many times. Many times. Maybe one devotee would sit like this, remember? He would sit like this. Not going to mention names. And he would just, he'd be speaking that Krishna says in Gita, that he'd be sleeping, snoring from the Vyasa side during Srimad Bhagavatam class. And do you think the devotees were disturbed? Mahajana Yena. Let us follow in the footsteps of the great soul. This is not an exaggeration. In fact, devotees in the brahmachari ashram, everyone had to do service while they were, no one just sat. Everyone had to be doing something to stay awake. So we tried to give every single devotee something to do with their hands. Yes? We would just, the pujaris would just invent just different things to do for the deities, even if you never use them for the deities. Just get people to make garlands or decorate this or decorate that, and everyone's like this, even that. Anything else, Mara?
You want to chant that something.
I remember Prabhupada, he was giving very short classes because he'd say, you devotees, you must work very hard. He gave us the benefit of the doubt for falling asleep. He said, you must work very hard. Instead of chastising, why are you falling asleep? He said, you must be working very hard all day long. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would embrace anyone who accepted the holy name from him. And then those persons became so charged with Lord Chaitanya's mercy, they would go back to their villages and they would be chanting in ecstasy. And everyone in the village participated in the Nam Sankirtan movement. And anyone who visited that village and saw everyone chanting the holy names, they would go back to their village and spread the glories of the Nam Sankirtan. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inducing thousands and thousands, hundreds and thousands of people to chant the holy names of Krishna. And by his super excellent transcendental power, as the most munificent of all incarnations, anyone who directly or indirectly, with a simple heart, accepted the holy name from him or those who he gave it to, he immediately awakened prema bhakti in their lives. He left behind a process, Vaidhi Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Raga Bhakti, a whole progressive system that was written down very clearly by Sri Rupa Goswami. And if we want to achieve the topmost perfection of receiving his causeless mercy, we must follow the system. But when he was personally present, the system was not so much required. All you had to do is just open your heart to accept his mercy one time, and prema bhakti would awaken in your heart. And you would go back home, back to Godhead. And you would be an empowered preacher to help others to awaken prema bhakti. That was the special munificence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advent in this world. We can attain the same thing, but it may take an entire lifetime of practice. But Lord Chaitanya, when he was personally here, he gave it free in an instant. Even to lions and tigers and snakes and trees and insects. That was his mercy. When Rupa Goswami saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayag, and there were millions of people during the Magh Mela, and all of them were dancing in ecstasy around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting Harinam. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare chanting, but they were chanting Prem Sankirtan. Their ecstatic love was awakened simply by seeing Mahaprabhu from a distance and just receiving his mercy. It is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita that in Navadvip, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he performed his sweetest, most intimate pastimes with his devotees. But as far as his preaching mission of inundating people's lives with Harinam, he did not fully manifest his potency in Navadvip, because there were many proud scholars and puffed up people. But he fully manifested his potency of giving mercy during his tour of South India, where he was freely giving Prema Bhakti and Harinam to everyone and anyone, and empowering all those persons to do the same. The first recorded place that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped was Kurmakshetra. Our last South Indian Yatra, we all visited that place. How many of you were present for that? Please raise your hands. Wasn't it a wonderful place? An amazing place, Kurmakshetra. We have heard about Ramanujacharya's Leela there. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Kurmakshetra, and in the temple of Kurmadev, which has been there for thousands upon thousands of years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing Nam Sankirtan. During Lord Chaitanya's South Indian tour, he didn't do so much philosophical preaching. Only with very scholarly people would he do that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Could everyone hear? For the vast body of common people, he would just induce them to chant Harinam, and that was it. So in Kurmakshetra, thousands and thousands of people were gathered around Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he was dancing. And what a beautiful dance. He had a very large body. He towered over everyone. And when he would raise his arms, which were so long that they extended below his knees, even if there were thousands and thousands of people, everyone could still see him. That was the majestic nature of Lord Chaitanya's form. Towering above everyone, they could see his beautiful moon-like face and his arms raised. His complexion was resplendent like molten gold. His eyes, lotus-shaped, extended almost to his ears. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes his nose was like a sesame seed and his lips were like fresh bimba fruit. His face was radiating like the full moon. His eyebrows were like the bows of Cupid. And his eyes, so beautiful, like dark bumblebees. Whoever he glanced upon would be surcharged with his mercy. His teeth were like rows of perfect formed pearls. His neck was like that of a lion. His shoulders were broad. His waist was thin. His arms were like the trunks of elephants. And he walked with the gait of an elephant. And as he would be chanting the holy names, tears of nectar would flow from his eyes like rivers. And his beautiful hairs would stand on end. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart, the love of his heart would manifest through the symptoms of ecstasy on his body. It was not something of this world. Anyone who would see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms, they were actually visualizing the most intimate secret of all spiritual truths, the ecstatic love of Srimati Radharani for Krishna. They were seeing it before their eyes in Lord Chaitanya's bodily features as he would chant the holy names. In Kurmakshetra, tens and thousands of people attained Prema Bhakti just by joining the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya. And the kirtan went on for hours and hours and hours and hours. And more people were being submersed in the ocean of ecstatic love. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally ended the kirtan. And so many people were coming to offer their gratitude to him. One such person was a Brahmin named Kurma. He invited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. Lord Chaitanya came because he was a great devotee. The Kurma Brahmin was very humble, very learned, very saintly. He washed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet. Then he personally drank that water and distributed it to all of his family members. And then with folded hands he offered prayers. He said, Today you have made my life so fortunate. You have come to my house. Your lotus feet, Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, they are performing great austerities to attain the dust of your feet. And those same lotus feet have today come right into my house by your causeless mercy. I consider today that my wealth, my family, my life, my everything has become successful because you have accepted my service. And then he said to the Lord that I am feeling great suffering due to the waves of misery of this material existence. I want to leave my house and leave my family and follow you, my Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke very grave. Do not ever speak like this again. There is no need for you to leave your home or your family or your occupation. You simply chant the name of Krishna constantly. Read Bhagavad Gita and teach it to others. And in this way, you be a guru and deliver others. This was Lord Chaitanya's teaching everywhere he went during his entire South Indian tour. Remain in the position that you are in. No need to give up family, or occupation, or domestic duties. Simply chant the name of Krishna. Hear about Krishna and teach others about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you follow this instruction, you will always be with me and I will always be with you. The Lord stayed the night with the Kurma Brahmin. The next morning, after his bath, he departed to continue in his southward journey. But Kurma Brahmin could not tolerate the thought of separation from the Lord. So Kurma Brahmin left home and just went with the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after walking some distance, he stopped and said, now you must go home. Kurma Brahmin had no taste for anything except service for the Lord. But the Lord told him, you must return home. It is your duty to me. And this is a very instructive principle. During South Indian tour, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not telling anyone to leave home. As far as we know in his South Indian tour, we know for sure one Goswami came out of that tour. And that was Gopal Bhatta Goswami here at Srirangam. And we'll get to that part later. But he told Gopal Bhatta Goswami, your mother and father are pure devotees. Stay with them until they die. Then come to Vrindavan and be a Goswami. Join Rupa and Sanatan. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was presenting a very, very practical principle. Now Sripad Shankaracharya, to actually follow him, you have to take sannyas. Because Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, if the world is an illusion, you can't really follow Shankaracharya in household life. It's not real. Because most of your day you're just dealing with illusion. Yes? You're absorbed in illusion. Because anything with form, anything with quality, any activity, it's all illusion. Only the impersonal, all-pervading Brahman is truth. And there's no activity in Brahman. So any activity is illusion. Any words are illusion. Everything's illusion except Brahman. So you can be a pseudo-follower of Shankaracharya, but to really be a follower, you have to be renounced. But in the path of bhakti, we see here in Srirangam, Ramanujacharya, he taught pure bhakti. And what is pure bhakti? That no, this world is not an illusion. This world is the energy of God, and that energy is eternal and real. The illusion is when we forget anything's relationship to God. When we forget that Krishna is the proprietor of everything, and everything is meant for the service of Krishna. Quraysh was a householder. Mahapurna was a householder. Dasarathi was a householder. Parasarabhatya, yes, was a householder. Govinda was a householder, but he took sannyas. So both the sannyasis and the grihastas were all exalted personalities. In fact, Ramanujacharya was the most strict and pure-hearted sannyasi. But even as a sannyasi, many of the people he accepted as his gurus were grihastas. Gostipurna was a grihasta. Mahapurna was a grihasta. Yes? Ramanujacharya sat at their feet and heard from them. He worshipped them. He learned from them. Although he was the Kreshtrul of all sannyasis, and he's sitting at the feet worshipping, honoring, and accepting as spiritual masters householders. And several of the gurus of Ramanujacharya, they were so pleased with him as a disciple that they gave their children to him to take initiation. Yes? Several of them did like this. After Ramanujacharya learned from them so nicely, they were so pleased that they gave their son, "You initiate my son, and he will be your disciple." What a loving experience of Vaishnava society it was. It was all based on quality. On the path of bhakti, because we understand yukta vairagya, that everything can be used in Krishna's service. And grihe tako, vane tako, sada hari bole tako. Whether one's a grihasta or whether one is a brahmachari or a sannyasi or vanaprastha, what matters is that whatever position we're in, we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness. We're using everything for Krishna. We see in the lives of Lord Chaitanya's associates and in the lives of Ramanujacharya's associates that the grihastas, the husband, the wife, they were completely dedicated together in serving Guru and Krishna. Therefore their house was Vaikuntha. And they were fit to be spiritual masters and deliver the highest essence to others. Lord Chaitanya told Kurma Brahman, be Guru. Don't leave home. Stay home with your wife and be Guru. Yare deka thare kaha Krishna upadesh amara goy Guru hoy thare desh. Make the whole land Krishna conscious. How? By teaching this message in parampara and chanting the holy name. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Kurma Brahman back home and carried on. There was another Brahman of the name Vasudev who had been suffering a severe, advanced case of leprosy. His whole body was rotten due to the disease. And living worms filled his body, eating him away. Vasudev, he was such a compassionate and gentle soul that if a worm fell from his body, he would very respectfully lift up the worm and place it as close as possible to the place where it fell from. Amanina manadena, to offer all respect to others and expect none in return. We may not imitate, but we can appreciate. If you cannot imitate a great soul, you make great spiritual advancement by appreciating them. Appreciation is an expression of the heart. Appreciation is a form of love and devotion. If we see a devotee doing something wonderful and appreciate them, we make great spiritual advancement simply doing that. If we are envious, our heart becomes deeply contaminated. There is nothing that is more unbecoming of a devotee than being envious of others. It is the worst quality of a Vaishnava. It is the quality that a Vaishnava very much fears, is envy toward others. But the root cause of envy is pride. When we are proud, we become envious of others. If we're humble, we cannot be envious. A humble heart can appreciate. A proud heart is envious. So yes, this offering respect to others to such an extreme, it's beyond us. Do you agree? We get sick, we take medicine. We try to kill those living entities that are causing us problems. Yes? Either Ayurvedic ways, which is kind of like a very mild execution of bacterial parasites and so forth. Or we take allopathic medicine, which is like nuclear bombs. But either way, we're killing. Yes? And to keep good health, we require to do that. But Vasudeva, he was on such a high platform, he didn't care about his health. He was more concerned with the health of the worms that were killing him than he was about his own health. Yes? That this body, I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul, and I'm living in this body, but these worms, they're also spirit souls, better than me. And they're living in this body. What right do I have to deprive them of their place in my body? That was his spirit. So when the worms would fall, with great respect he would put it back. When he heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was at the house of the Kurma Brahman, he was longing to see him. You see, because Vasudeva was so compassionate to others, because he had such a pure, non-envious heart, just by hearing about Lord Chaitanya, he could immediately understand that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna revealed it to him. Ultimately, there's only one way to understand who God is, by God's mercy. Gopinath Acharya presented this argument to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Gopinath Acharya that this young sannyasi, he has taken initiation in an inferior line of sannyasis. He's Bharati. But I have the authority to elevate him to the Saraswat sannyas line. And by my teaching him Vedanta Sutra, he will be protected. Gopinath Acharya could not tolerate hearing his brother-in-law speaking in this way. He said, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't have to be elevated by you. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, why you're speaking like this? According to Shastra, where is the evidence that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And Gopinath Acharya began to cite evidence. But then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's disciples, and he had many, but some of his learned disciples, they were having a debate with Gopinath Acharya on the basis of Shastra. And Gopinath Acharya's conclusion was simply that with all the scripture in the world, unless one receives the mercy of the Lord, one cannot understand who he is. And the mercy of the Lord comes to his pure devotees very often. That is why we often repeat Prabhupada's words when he was asked, what was our qualification for understanding Krishna? Prabhupada said, you had no qualification. He said, I made your qualifications. Now that is not a proud remark, that's just the truth. Prabhupada considered himself the puppet of his Guru Maharaj, and he was repeating the message, and it is by the mercy of a Vaishnava that we can get the mercy of Krishna and understand who he is. Krishna manifests his mercy through his devotees in this world, and that's how we know who he is. Even here in India, which is the land of Krishna, how many of you really knew who Krishna was before you came in contact with Srila Prabhupada and his devotees? You're seeing Krishna on television. You're seeing Krishna in the cinemas. You're seeing pictures of Krishna everywhere. You're buying your pan at the Krishna Panwala. Krishna's everywhere. So how many people know who Krishna is? He's just one of the gods who plays with gopis. Srila Prabhupada, through his books and through his devotees, are illuminating so many people of India who actually Krishna is. What is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is the goal of life? This is the great Ramanujacharya when he was here in Srirangam. The vast majority of people of India, they were so mixed up about religion and spirituality. They really didn't know what was what. Either they were pseudo-Buddhists, or they considered that I am God and you are God and everything is God and God is one. Or they were just immersed in materialistic life. But everyone heard about Krishna. Nobody knew. So yes, Gopinath Acharya told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the only way to understand Krishna is when Krishna bestows his mercy upon you. It is said, by the mercy of Krishna one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru one gets Krishna. Sarvabhauma Bhata. And then Gopinath Acharya said, but because your heart is so dry and so hard, like an old rice cake, you cannot understand Krishna even when he's living in your house with you. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, please, my brother, we're just having a friendly discussion. Don't get so angry like this. Said, only when Lord Chaitanya bestows his mercy upon you will you know who he is. And that happened. When Lord Chaitanya bestowed his mercy on Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, but he did it in such a way that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was receptive to receive his mercy. That's preaching. Because the Lord does not interfere with a person's free will. In South India, it was very easy to deliver so many simple, common people. Because they just accepted the holy name and accepted Krishna and Prema Bhakti instantly. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was a stubborn person. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to sit for many days and listen to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya speak all Mayavad philosophy. And he had to treat Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya with so much respect and love, like a father. That Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his heart became so soft toward Lord Chaitanya. He loved him like a son. And because Lord Chaitanya sat and listened to him for so long, it was his rightful duty to listen to Lord Chaitanya. And then Mahaprabhu spoke and transformed his heart. So Vasudeva, because of his humility, his respect for others, and his deep faith, he could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was at the house of Kurma Brahma. And he wanted to meet him. He wanted to surrender his life to him. He did not want to be cured from leprosy. He just wanted to surrender to the Lord. That was his only desire in life. Yes, it wasn't like these evangelistic situations where all sick people are coming, cure my disease. Vasudeva didn't want his disease cured. He was actually feeling grateful that he was performing philanthropic work for so many other living entities. And because he was a devotee and he was chanting, all the worms in his body were getting purified too. Doing seva. So he went to Kurma Brahman's house, and when he arrived, it was the only goal of his life. He was dying. He was quickly dying of a miserable, horrible disease. He just wanted to see the Lord before he died. He had such eagerness. He had such anticipation. But when he arrived, Lord Chaitanya was gone. Can you imagine what a disappointment that was? It was so disappointing to Vasudeva that he fell unconscious. He lost the chance of his life. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knows everyone's heart. He understood. And he came back. The Lord actually came back. There are several references in Lord Chaitanya's South Indian tour where he comes back to the same place just to give very special mercy to someone. So he walked all the way back to the Kurma Brahman's house, and there Vasudeva saw him coming. And Vasudeva fell flat on the ground to offer his obeisances. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lifted him up and embraced him. And when he embraced him, all the leprosy disappeared.
And it is my firm opinion that every one of those worms went back to God. Because the Lord shows special mercy to those who devotees love. And Vasudeva loved all his little worms. They were like his little worms that he nourished with his own flesh, his own blood, his own organs. So Mahaprabhu embraced him, the worms went to Vaikuntha, and Vasudeva had a beautiful, youthful, illustrious body with a spiritual glow. Vasudeva was overwhelmed with gratitude. He said, "Who am I? Just a very sinful, lowly friend of a Brahmin. And who are you? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the origin of everything. And yet you have embraced me with your arms?" Vasudeva said that I can understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead because no one else can be so merciful. That my body is so abominable. It is so disgusting. What to speak of respectable people? Even the lowest people will not come near me because my body smells so putrefied and horrible. Can you imagine living like that? Where your body 24 hours a day was just emitting such a putrid, rotten stench that even the animals didn't want to come near you. What to speak of a human? And you had to live with yourself. The only association Vasudeva had was the worms. The fact, nobody else except those worms wanted anything to do with him. And they were just exploiting him. They were just eating him. He said, my body is so abominable, so diseased, smells so bad that even the lowest person won't come near me. But you have embraced me with your arms? You are the Supreme Lord. No one else can be so merciful. But then a fear awoke within his heart. A fear that because he received such mercy from the Lord, he may become proud. Now he's Vasudeva. Lord Chaitanya would be known as Vasudeva Amrita Prada. One of the prominent names of Lord Chaitanya, which means he had given nectar to Vasudeva. How I have received such mercy. He feared pride entering into his heart. And this is a very serious spiritual point that must be understood by all aspiring devotees. That whatever devotional service we have is spoiled by false pride. Even if you do something wonderful, if it causes pride in your heart, that pride just contaminates the spiritual quality of whatever you've done. It's the greatest enemy for a devotee. It's the cause of aparad and the cause of fall down. Ramanujacharya taught that you must crush all false pride from your heart. It must be crushed. And how is that done? By serving Vaishnavas. Not only is Das Das Anu Das, servant of the servant, the goal of our life, because it pleases Krishna most, but it's also the means by which to attain the goal of life. By serving devotees, Krishna is pleased, and he helps us to crush that pride. Vasudeva would rather be smelling obnoxious, suffering a horrible disease and dying. He'd rather be in that state, in a humble state of mind, than to be perfectly healthy and become proud. That was the standard of his devotion. And every devotee should have that fear of false pride. And when the ugly head of pride comes up in our life, we shouldn't serve it obediently. We should fight it. False pride is like Hiranyakashipu living within us. Arrogance. And Maya is so strong that she uses pride as a weapon that is the greatest killer of Vaishnavas, killer of their spiritual lives. So Vasudeva is teaching us. He didn't care about a beautiful body. He wanted to be a humble servant. And he feared getting too much mercy can make me proud. If you get special mercy, you can think yourself superior to someone else. That's very difficult. We see even within our own movement, some devotees who got very special personal mercy from Prabhupada were humbled by that. But others may have become proud. I had so much association with Prabhupada. Prabhupada approved of what I said. You should all listen to me. You should honor me. You should respect me. You should know me for who I am. Prabhupada did this for me. Prabhupada said this to me. He wrote this letter for me. They want to be respected for that. They consider themselves in a superior position because of that. And there's other devotees who Prabhupada never said a single word to. He may have only glanced at once or twice. But those devotees are totally empowered by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And others who Prabhupada invested so much energy in, if they accepted that with a humble heart, then they will also be divinely empowered. But it is a fact that sometimes even getting empowered by the Lord or empowered by the spiritual master can make us proud. And it undoes everything. So Vasudeva is our Acharya in this way. He was not happy about being cured. He was worried about being proud. But Lord Chaitanya knew his heart. And he said, always chant Krishna's names. And give this message of Bhagavad Gita to others. Servant of the servant. And there is no fear of pride. There is no reason to fear pride coming into your heart. If we do the will of Krishna, Krishna will protect us. So this is the process of overcoming pride. Chanting the holy names, serving the Vaishnavas, and being an instrument of compassion to the world. This is Lord Chaitanya's message. Then Lord Chaitanya left, and the Kurma Brahman and Vasudev, they were just embracing one another in ecstasy, weeping tears of joy that they had received such mercy. Intoxicated as they chanted very loudly. Should I continue? Sound very sleepy. The next place Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped was, that is recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vishakhapatnam, where he climbed the hill called Singhachalam, and there had darshan of Jyada Narasimha Dev. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in front of this very, very ancient, famous deity of Lord Narasimha, he danced in ecstasy. This particular deity is from the Satya Yuga. It is described that when Hiranyakashipu was trying to kill Prahlad, he threw him into the ocean and then even tried to put a mountain on top of him. Prahlad was fearless. Prahlad was not concerned with life or death. Prahlad was only concerned with remembering Krishna. And in remembering Krishna, there is no more death. The Lord appeared in a unique form of Varaha Narasimha, with the face of Varahadev and the claws and the tails of Narasimhadev. Varaha Narasimha, a very ferocious form. And he saved Prahlad, and he was very angry at Hiranyakashipu. So years later, Prahlad Maharaj, after Hiranyakashipu was dismissed from his position, Prahlad went back to that spot because it was a very sacred place where he had such a wonderful darshan. And there this deity of Varaha Narasimha manifested to him. And Prahlad Maharaj personally worshipped the deity there. It's been worshipped ever since. But it is said that the deity is so angry at the offenses to his devotees Prahlad that his anger causes heat in his body. Thus the pujaris cover his body with sandalwood paste, chandan, and camphor to make him cool. And there are stories in the temple of how if a pujari didn't put chandan on Varaha Narasimha's body in a day, about severe reactions that took place to both him and his entire family. So they're very strict. And every day they put large amounts of chandan on his body. And they don't take it off. They just keep putting more and more and more on. So when you go to see Lord Narasimhadev, he looks like a gigantic Shivalingam, a Gopi Chandan, and way deep down inside of that is the deity. It's like a mountain of Chandan, sometimes this high. The deity's like this, and they put big tilak, Ramanujam, Sri Vaishnava tilak on, and they put garlands over the Chandan, and they put so many ornaments on the Chandan. And only once a year do they take the Chandan off. One day a year on a particular Ekadasi do they give darshan of the deity directly. And lakhs, hundreds and thousands of people come for that day. Would you like to go on that day on Yatra? But if you want to go on that day for a Yatra, it's one of the hottest days of the year. And there's hundreds and thousands of people standing in line. So you should get very much trained up to be happy standing in line in Tirupati and Srirangam to prepare yourself for that line. Because they have the same system there. So it's a very glorious temple. Considered one of the most powerful deities of Narasimhadev in all of the world. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there dancing in ecstasy before Varaha and Narasimha. And he was singing beautiful prayers. That is where we get this prayer from. We can sing it together. Shri Narasimha Jai Narasimha Jai Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Vinga That part isn't there. The first part, yes? That wonderful prayer is directly chanted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he's praying with ecstatic tears in his eyes that Lord Narasimhadev is like a mother lion. She's very gentle and loving and protective to her little cub children, Prahlad. But if anyone tries to hurt her little cub child, she is ferocious like death personified. Hare Krishna. So thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and chanted and transformed the whole Singhachalam into devotees, pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in so much ecstasy, tasting the sweetness of the holy name, that he did not even consider what direction he was going, or whether it was even day or night. Simply immersed in Kirtan Ras. And then he came to the banks of the Godavari River. When he saw the river, he remembered Jamuna. Seeing the forest besides the river, he remembered Sri Vrindavan Dham. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstatic love bathed in Godavari. Then he crossed over the river to the other side, a place called Kovur. And there he sat down patiently. Within a matter of minutes, a procession came. There were Brahmins chanting and musicians playing instruments, and a decorated palanquin. On the palanquin was the governor of the vicinity. His name, Ramananda Rai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately recognized and understood who he was. And in his heart, he was running to embrace him. But with great efforts, he remained sitting in a secluded place in the forest. Meanwhile, Sri Ramananda Rai got off his palanquin, and as the Brahmins were chanting the appropriate mantras and performing their mudras and pudras, Ramananda Rai took his bath. And when he came out of his bath, he happened to see an effulgent sannyasi sitting. Sri Ramananda Rai very reverentially approached the sannyasi and laid on the ground in his full obeisances. And Lord Chaitanya, and then he got up. And Lord Chaitanya asked, "Are you Ramananda Rai?" Ramananda Rai said, "I am a very low servant of the servant of your servants. I belong to the Shudra community." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him. This is very significant. He's very wealthy, most learned, ecstatic, pure devotee of the Lord. He's descended from Goloka Vrindavan. He's riding on a palanquin. He has musicians and Brahmins all at his disposal, chanting for him only. That was the role he had to play. There was no false ego in that. That's just part of what being a governor meant in those days. And he was a pious and religious man. But in his heart of hearts, he introduced himself. He didn't tell Lord Chaitanya how many verses he knew. He didn't tell Lord Chaitanya all about the unlimited information of Krishna he had. He didn't tell Lord Chaitanya about his riches or his treasures, about all the things that he accomplished in life. He said to Lord Chaitanya that I am your very low servant and I belong to the Shudra community. That was his greatness. If you boast, you repel the Lord. If you're humble, you attract the Lord. Lord Chaitanya embraced him. And when he embraced him, Lord Chaitanya was feeling so much ecstasy embracing such a devotee that tears were pouring from his eyes, his hairs were standing on end, his limbs were trembling, his voice was choked up. He was perspiring profusely, and all the same symptoms were manifested on Ramananda Rai's body. And it came to such a culmination of ecstasy as they embraced that they both fell to the ground. They fainted. And then when they came back to consciousness, these symptoms of ecstasy were just out of control. And these Smarta Brahmins, they were bewildered. They were asking, what is this sannyasi feeling? Why is he crying, embracing a Shudra? That's what they were thinking. And others were thinking, Ramananda Rai is such a Mahapandit and such a prestigious government official. He's an aristocrat. Why is he crying, embracing a sannyasi? So when Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai understood that they could not comprehend properly, they somehow or other restrained their ecstatic love for each other.
And Srila Prabhupada explains this is a very important principle, that one should never show one's ecstatic symptoms of love of God in the face of someone who cannot fully comprehend it. Some people, it's a cheap show. They practice manifesting symptoms. They actually force themselves to cry. But those types of tears are not tears of love. In fact, our acharyas say those tears wash away the conclusions of the Vedas. Tears should never be for show. Nothing should ever be for show. Everything should be sincere for the service of the Lord. Actors and actresses can cry. In fact, I have seen ladies, if they want to get their way, they just, I don't know what, some mystic power, they just have some little button they press and tears flow. Men usually can't do that. I guess men just don't have that button. Some little subtle in the mind, the mind just goes, and then so it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that they're manifesting symptoms of Mahabhav. It means they just know how to cry, that's all. So sometimes when people chant the holy names, they try to cry. You're not supposed to try to cry. Do not try to cry. Or spiritually, you may die. And Krishna will say goodbye. And Maya will say hi. So it's better to remain dry. This is not a lie.
Don't ask why.
Chandramali Swami says, do not ask why. So, Prabhupada explains that even when these symptoms come, the price of Krishna consciousness is the tears we shed in separation from Krishna. But they have to be from the heart. Not just from the eyes, they have to be from the heart. They may manifest out of the eyes, but they must be from the heart. And we should restrain from letting others see them. Those tears are reserved for Krishna. If other people watch them and get impressed by them, then it has no real spiritual meaning. A chaste woman does not reveal herself to anyone except her husband. So similarly, our ecstasies should be very privately for Krishna within our heart, not for cheap adoration. So Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya, somehow or other, they controlled themselves. And Lord Chaitanya said to Ramananda Rai that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he told me
with great, great enthusiasm that I must meet you when I come to South India. And now I can understand that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, out of his mercy for me, he has given me your association.
And Ramananda Rai, he said, it is unbelievable you are touching a Shudra like me. I can understand it is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's great affection, compassion, and causeless mercy upon me that he has sent you to deliver me. Lord Chaitanya said, I am just a Mayavadi philosopher. I am just a Mayavadi sannyasi. But due to touching you, I am now floating in an ocean of love of God. Ramananda Rai said, just you see, your ecstatic love, all of these men, everyone around is chanting, they are all crying in ecstasy. So in this way, they were each trying to praise each other and speak very lowly about themselves. This is how Vaishnava relationships are. It's something very beautiful because it's not artificial, it's not superficial, but it is from the heart. To humble yourself and appreciate the glories of others. We were speaking how appreciation is an act of love. It is the opposite of envy. When a devotee does something wonderful, if we appreciate what that devotee is doing, we make great spiritual progress. Even if we can't do, if we appreciate, we get so much great benefit. Even if we're not so empowered to do great things, if we can simply appreciate people who are. In fact, great souls, they appreciate even little things that people do, what to speak of great things. Srila Prabhupada had such deep appreciation even for the slightest little effort for service, even if it wasn't done properly. Yes, that is a sign of a great soul. But it's also very purifying to our heart. So we should learn that one of the greatest offerings of the heart, offering of love and devotion, is to appreciate Krishna, to appreciate the deities, to appreciate the efforts of the pujaris, to appreciate the efforts of the cooks, to appreciate the efforts of the managers and organizers. Even if they may make some mistakes, they're to appreciate how hard they're working, to appreciate the stress that they're taking without getting paid anything. They're taking on so much stress and so many headaches and so many long hours just to try to make us happy. That appreciation is bhakti. To appreciate each devotee for their enthusiasm, for their sincerity, or for any efforts they're making to serve the mission of Guru and Gauranga. To appreciate anybody who comes to help us in any way, shape, or form in our life. That is love. Krishna appreciates appreciation. And this is what Vaishnava relationships are about, appreciating one another. But there can only be real appreciation when there's humility. And that's why we find here, Lord Chaitanya is calling himself a Mayavad sannyasi, and he's giving all credit to Ramananda Rai.
And Ramananda Rai is considering himself a Shudra and giving all credit to Lord Chaitanya. You can appreciate when you see yourself in a humble position. And that is one of the key features of making spiritual advancement. If nothing else you remember from this class, please remember that. So Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai decided that they would meet in the evening. One Brahmin came and invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take prasad at his house. And Lord Chaitanya went. That evening, on the banks of the river Godavari, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Ramananda Rai had met. One of the deepest, most profound discussions ever to take place in this universal creation was there in Kolhapur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Radha and Krishna, wanted the highest truths to be revealed through the mouths of his devotee. In summary, Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Rai, what is the ultimate goal of life and how to achieve it? And Ramananda Rai quoted from the Vishnu Purana that by following one's prescribed duties according to Varna and Ashram in the service of the Lord, one will satisfy Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that is external. Tell me something more. He quoted, Yat karoshi yarashnasi yajto hoshi tatasi yat yatta pasyasi konteya tatkuru shumadarapana. That one should offer all one's activities to Krishna. One should, all that we do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, all austerities you perform, should all be done as an offering to Krishna. Lord Chaitanya replied, that is external. Tell me something more. Ramananda Rai said, to renounce varnashram and to surrender to Krishna. That is the essence of perfection. And he quoted, Sarva dharmam parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sricha. Abandon all varieties of dharma and just surrender to me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions, do not fear. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, that is very good. But please, say something more. He said, devotional service mixed with empiric knowledge is the essence of perfection. Brahmabhuta prasanatmana sochatina kankshati samasarabeshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate bhava. Lord Chaitanya said, that is external. Tell me something more. Ramananda Rai spoke that pure devotional service with no tinge of any mixture of empirical knowledge, that is the essence of perfection. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, that is all right. But please tell me something more. Ramananda Rai said, ecstatic love for Krishna is the essence of perfection. And there's only one price for that ecstatic love, That is the intense greed to achieve it. Ramananda Rai said, in that ecstatic love of Krishna, when it arises from the spontaneous feelings of the heart, one could love Krishna as eternal servant. Lord Chaitanya said, please tell me something more. And then he explained that love of God in Sakya-ras as a friend is the essence of perfection. And he gave example of cowherd boys. Mahaprabhu said, please go on, tell more. He said, love of God in the mood of parent, like Mother and Yashoda, Vatsalya-ras is the essence of perfection. Mahaprabhu said, please tell me more. He said, the essence of all perfection is conjugal love, the love of Krishna for the gopis. And how when the gopis renounced everything to be with Krishna on bank of Yamuna for the Ras Leela, Krishna appeared to them and told them that I cannot repay you for your love even in a lifetime of Brahma. Thus, conjugal love is the essence of all perfection. And Ramananda Rai explained how in each progressively higher mood of ras, of loving Krishna, all the others preliminary to that are included. In conjugal love is the full-fledged realization of Vatsalya-ras, Sakya-ras, and Dasya-ras. They are all included in conjugal love.
And then Ramananda Rai said that although each devotee, according to their particular relationship with Krishna, is completely satisfies and considers that particular relationship to be the supreme perfection and essence of the goal of life, still from a neutral objective point of view, conjugal love is supreme because it includes all others. And therefore it has the greatest capacity to attract Krishna. Lord Chaitanya said, this is very good, but if you know something more, tell me more. Srila Ramananda Rai said, I never thought there could be anyone, anywhere, that could ask for something higher than that. But since you have asked, I will speak. Of all those gopis who have ecstatic conjugal ras, Srimati Radharani is supreme. And he gave as an example of how Krishna left all other gopis only to be with Sri Radha. Thus, in the discussion between Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya, the theistic development was so precisely presented, from the basics of just doing your duty to Krishna to the culmination of Srimati Radharani's supreme ecstatic Mahabhav. And then Ramananda Rai and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's request dove deeply into the intricacies of the love affairs of Radha and Krishna.
They continued speaking all night, every night on these subjects for 10 days. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed to Ramananda Rai his true essence. Ramananda Rai was so humble. So humble. He said that Lord Chaitanya was praising him for giving him so much nectar. Ramananda Rai said, I'm just a parrot. I'm just repeating what you make me to speak. Just like a cloud takes water from the ocean and then pours water on the ocean. You are like the ocean, I'm like the cloud. You're giving me the water and then you're asking me to give it back. So Ramananda Rai said, I am just a puppet and you are the puppeteer. My tongue is just a stringed instrument and you are the expert musician that is vibrating these sounds through me. Even I do not understand what I'm saying. You are making me speak in this way, my Lord. Lord Chaitanya said, I am just a Mayavadi sannyasi floating in Mayavad philosophy. It is only by your mercy that I am understanding the highest, sweetest nature of Radha and Krishna's Leela. And Ramananda Rai said, my Lord, please don't fool me any longer. I know who you are. He said, I understand that you are Krishna, who has descended into this world, especially to taste the sweetness of Radharani's love. You are Krishna with the inner emotions and the beautiful complexions of Srimati Radharani. And you have come to serve your own personal interest and also to deliver the world by inundating everyone's hearts with the holy name. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed to Ramananda Rai. Revealed to Ramananda Rai his form of Radha and Krishna. Revealing to Ramananda Rai something that no one has ever seen before. Krishna entering deep into the heart of Srimati Radharani to plunder the nectar of the taste of her love. Ramananda Rai could see it with his divine eyes, and he fell to the ground unconscious. And Lord Chaitanya touched him and brought him back to consciousness. And Lord Chaitanya said that I am the son of Nanda Maharaj with the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani. But this is a secret. What you have seen, no one has ever seen before. Do not reveal to anyone. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Ramananda Rai that I cannot give up your association. Immediately resign from your government service and come to Puri, and we will live together for the rest of our lives. He said, when I complete my South Indian tour, I will meet you in Puri, and there we will discuss Krishna day and night. Ramananda Rai surrendered. And he did. After 10 days of ecstatic Harikatha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued on his tour. He first visited a Hanuman temple and ecstatically worshipped the great devotee of Lord Sri Ramchandra. And meanwhile, Ramananda Rai went to King Prataparudra and told him that I had met Lord Chaitanya, who's the Supreme Personality. He didn't tell him he's the Supreme Personality. He said, I met Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya has told me that I should resign from my government service and go to Puri to live with him. Prataparudra Maharaj was so ecstatic. Who wants to lose a first-class government leader like that? But Prataparudra was such a great devotee. He said, you are so fortunate. As soon as he heard the name Lord Chaitanya, Prataparudra began to weep and cry, and his limbs were trembling. He went through all ecstatic symptoms just hearing the message of Lord Chaitanya, and he embraced Ramananda Rai. He said, if that's what the Lord wants you to do, then you go. Not only do I give you full blessings to leave, but I will give you full salary with a raise and a pension. Go to Puri and serve Lord Chaitanya. You are most fortunate. The Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that the discussions between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai were like condensed milk with sugar candy mixed together, with a touch of camphor also. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Mangalagiri, the deity of Lord Narasimhadev, who in Kali Yuga drinks water mixed with gur. That is a beautiful story. And he danced and chanted at the temple of Lord Narasimhadev. Then he came to Siddhavata. At Siddhavata there was a devotee of Lord Ram who was constantly chanting Lord Sri Ramchandra's names. One day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back to visit that Ram Bhakta, and he was constantly chanting Krishna's names. Lord Chaitanya said, what has happened? You were chanting Ram's name, why are you chanting Krishna's names? He said, from my earliest childhood, I have been a devotee of Ram, and I've constantly chanted Ramchandra's names. But after meeting you, only the name of Krishna comes out of my mouth. The name of Ram has gone far away. Only the name of Krishna comes out of my mouth. And then he quoted from the scriptures. He said, chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu is equal chanting one name of Ram. And chanting 3,000 names of Vishnu is equal to chanting one name of Krishna. And now I am tasting the nectar of Krishna, and I can understand why. Because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy, and he gave him ecstatic prema bhakti. Millions of people were coming to see Lord Chaitanya. And some of them were coming with various philosophies to try to defeat him. In fact, every type of philosopher was coming to try to debate with Lord Chaitanya. And each and every one of them was defeated. Should I continue? Are you sure? You're so polite. Some of you are leaning on walls. Others are struggling. But something to look forward is we are going to Kaveri to bathe right after class. But I'll fast forward.
So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to one place and a group of Buddhist philosophers came to challenge him with the 9 principles of Buddhist Dharma. And the teacher was a great scholar, and his students were there to see their teacher victorious over this Vaishnava. But Lord Chaitanya, he just crushed to powder all of their misconceptions and established the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. Now, these Buddhist philosophers, they were defeated. They were absolutely speechless. There was nothing they could say, but they couldn't accept what Lord Chaitanya said because they were very attached to their own religious principles. So they decided to get revenge against the Lord. So they got a big, heavy plate and filled it with untouchable food and brought it to Lord Chaitanya, saying, "We have come to offer you Mahaprasad." And as they were just handing it to Lord Chaitanya, a big bird descended from the sky and with its claws picked up the plate and went high in the sky with it. But as he was going in the sky, all the untouchable food fell on the heads of the Buddhists. And the bird went higher and higher and higher and higher and then let go of the plate. And this bird had such perfect aim that the plate just came down and the edge of the plate just cracked right into the guru's head. Blood was flowing. He fell to the ground lifeless. So all of his disciples gathered around him and they saw he was in a helpless condition. They didn't know what to do. So they all ran back to Lord Chaitanya and offered obeisances to him and said, "Please save our Guru, please save our Guru." And Lord Chaitanya said, "You all gather in a circle around him and right into his ear loudly chant the holy name." They chanted the holy names in the ears of Guru, and Guru came to consciousness. And what happened is Lord Chaitanya, by giving them the holy name, initiated all the disciples, and then the disciples initiated their Guru. And they all became pure Vaishnavas. And they all wanted to run to offer their lives and their hearts to Lord Chaitanya. But he left the place before they could come. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to Tirupati, where he danced and chanted before Sri Balaji. And from Tirupati he went to Kanchipuram, Vishnu Kanchi, Shiva Kanchi, singing and dancing the holy names of Krishna and transforming thousands and thousands of people's lives. And from Kanchipuram, he came to the holy river Kaveri. He took his bath, and after bathing in Kaveri river in great ecstasy, he beheld the magnificent darshan of Srirangam. And I think we should end here.